Welcome to In Touch Crime Beat. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Larson.
Out of jail, okay? Don't mess up.
And those are the people, those repeat offenders, the ones that go to prison. And
I say we're the #1 rated radio show in the whole country. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth.
This week on In Touch, Officer Don and Ray the DA discuss gun control laws. The issue has swept the nation in light of the gun-related tragedies that occurred in 2012. But would these laws really help prevent gun violence? Ray and Officer Don argue against this approach, saying criminals don't care about following the law. They just care about the punishment they'll face for breaking it. Instead of limiting law-abiding citizens' access to guns, laws mandating stricter punishments for gun-related crimes is the answer. Listen now to hear them discuss this more. Thanks for watching.
500 police officers in Lexington. They can't be everywhere. And that's what people who argue for the right to bear arms will tell you, is the cops can't be everywhere. And most of the time the cops respond to things after the fact or after things have already kicked off. And in that meantime, what do you do? That's what people say. And that's a valid argument. You know, that's a real argument. If you look at the shootings that have happened, these horrific school shootings, when you really break it down, there were so many factors that go into that. Like this last guy that killed all those poor kids was really into the video games. He was really into the Call of Duty and games like that. Initially in this whole thing, that was looked at, and they said they were going to address it, but that has just sort of fallen to the wayside, and now it's focused on just restricting weapons, and you just don't, you know, most people don't feel that's going to be effective. You know,
well, it won't be. I mean, take a look at Chicago. Mm-hmm. They got all of these strict gun laws, and guess what? They have the highest number of murders in years up there, and because these elected leaders are ignoring law-abiding citizens who are also taxpayers, who expect government to do what government's supposed to do, and that's everything possible to guarantee the safety and security of its citizens.
So you don't feel that the fewer guns on the street, the less likely to have shootings? I mean, that's right. You think that if they reduce the number of guns on the street, that would reduce the number of shootings?
The only people who are going to keep from owning guns are going to be law-abiding citizens.
The criminals ignore
the criminals. They don't care about the gun control laws. They don't care.
It's the baby seal concept. You know, if you're not armed, then everyone's just sort of a baby seal, and the criminals know that.
Well,
you walk up and do what you want. So.
I'm telling you, it's a hoot. In the Louisville newspaper, the Courier-Journal, as I call it, had a big article about, does your representative or senator, meaning in Washington, own a gun? And they asked everybody, and Andy Barr, who represents our district, no response. Well, I would have made a response if they'd asked me that, and that is none of your damn business. But some of them said no guns, and then you got this Thomas Massey, who now is a new hero, and he has a bumper sticker on his car that says, quote, "If you know how many guns you have, you don't have enough." That's my kind of guy. So at any rate, that's where we are on that, and it's...
Well, guns are certainly scary in the wrong hands. There's no doubt about that. And the bottom line is, the gun doesn't really control what it does, but you can control who gets their hands on them, I guess, or at least how you're going to punish those people that get their hands on a gun and do bad things. So.
Pete Carlisle, who's the father of Aspen Carlisle, Aspen is a prosecutor in our office, and Pete used to be the DA in Honolulu and the mayor of Honolulu, and he was in town to visit his daughter, and I asked Aspen to bring him because he's a friend of mine, and ask him to talk a little bit about stuff that's going on in Honolulu. And he says crystal meth is out of hand. and has been for some time. It comes from China, and it comes from Korea, and it comes from the Philippines. And I said, well, talk to me about gun stuff. He said, well, it's a bigger, the answer to that is a bigger issue than just guns. He says because 75% of our population is Asian, and Asian populations are, for the most part, very law-abiding citizens. And he said, so we don't have a huge gun issue. What we do have is laws that say anybody that commits a crime and is in possession or uses a firearm goes to prison. Period. There's no probation, none of this. They go to prison. And guess what? The criminals get the message. Well, that leads me back to this whole idea. If criminals do get the message, if they commit a crime, a burglary, for example, and they know that if they're caught, they're going to prison if convicted, well, you're going to see a drop in the number of burglaries. But right now, thanks to our criminal coddling, catch and release philosophy of our legislature, there is no risk. They don't see a risk in committing a burglary or a property crime.
There was a time when we had a little more teeth, in at least how we viewed burglaries with weapons, that I've had burglars that would tell you they wouldn't touch a gun. If they go into a house and they saw a gun, because it elevated the crime, and they wouldn't touch it. Now, since I don't think that, honestly, as far as sentencing goes now and how things are working, it just doesn't seem to have that much of an impact anymore, whether or not they used a gun in the burglary. And they do get that message. Same with chasing people. I've had many of people that you get into a foot pursuit and you see them toss something. And it's normally a gun or drugs. Because they know if they're caught with that gun, with the drugs, that could be a federal charge. It could be enhanced. And the people that are the real prolific criminals know the law. Believe me, they know how far they can push it. Just like your kids do whenever they know you, and they know where they hit that line where they're going to be in a lot of trouble. These professional criminals do too. If you tell them that a gun enhances a crime and it's going to tag 10 years mandatory on their sentence, it will have an impact on gun crime. I guarantee it. Now, it may not affect the absolute crazy people, like this person in Connecticut, that there's no rhyme nor reason, and a normal human being can't even imagine what caused him to do that. I don't think there's any impacting people like that. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Sure.
That's just how their mind works. But you can impact the criminals that are operating on here on a daily basis. They're not going into criminal behavior necessarily to kill someone, but when the opportunity pops up or something goes bad, next thing you know, they've turned what they intended to be a robbery into a murder, a capital murder charge. You can't impact those individuals, and those are your everyday criminals, by enhancing your gun laws. There's no doubt about it.
Well, Pete Carlisle says the fact that they know you use or possess even a gun when you commit a crime, you're in mandatory minimum sentences.
You know, one of the ways that we know that is when we were really enforcing our drug laws, and there was an enhancement for a certain amount of crack versus cocaine. They didn't want to get caught with crack because they knew, and they went out of their way to hand this stuff off and do all they could to keep from getting caught with crack at the time that were really enforcing that, because it was devastating our urban communities so much. And the same goes with amounts of marijuana, amounts of cocaine. When it's amazing how they'll wind up dealing just under that.
Sure.
Because they know, look, you know, if you catch me with an ounce, I'm looking at maybe probation. If you catch me with a kilo, I'm going to go to prison. It has an impact on people. No doubt about it.
No question. There was a story coming out of Los Angeles. You remember how California is not, they're letting people out of prison and making them go to the counties to catch this. And this is going to happen here, given our criminal coddling behavior of the legislature. Thousands of paroled child molesters, rapists, and other high-risk sex offenders are removing or disarming their court-ordered electronic ankle bracelets, and some have been charged with new crimes, including sexual battery, kidnapping, attempted manslaughter. Here's what they've learned. they've learned that they can disable these monitors with almost no risk of going back to jail or prison. Why? Same reason here. California says, oh, we can't afford to put these people back in prison. It's going to happen. It'll just take another year before this kind of stuff happens, although this cutting off the ankle bracelet is going on now. You've looked at those things.
Sure.
How tough is it to cut that baby off?
Oh, it just takes an industrial pair of scissors and you can do that. And it's just that simple. And, you know, for the most dangerous individuals, it really doesn't matter. They'll cut it off and go do what they're going to do, or they'll do what they're going to do and wear the bracelet. There's been plenty that have done that. Dangerous people do not need to be wearing ankle bracelets. Rapists do not need to be wearing ankle bracelets. People, I contend burglars don't need to wear ankle bracelets because burglars are dangerous. But I'll tell you what makes them dangerous. When you're home and someone comes into your house in the middle of the night and creeps around your house, that's very dangerous. You just don't know that no good can come from that. You know, I mean, you don't know if your daughter's going to get up in the middle of the night to go downstairs to get a drink of water, and there's some guy standing in the kitchen, and you don't want to know what a burglary is going to suddenly turn into. And these people are dangerous. Anyone that would break into your home, it's insane that person is considered to be a nonviolent offender. And those are the people they slap these ankle bracelets on. We've had them slap them on sex offenders, people that have committed rapes, people on trial for rape, and wearing ankle bracelets.
Let me give you an update on the Brian's Law, Brian Derman. I got an email. That's the one that takes manslaughter and reckless homicide, and where somebody's been killed, which is presently what's called a nonviolent crime according to the legislature, and it reclassifies it as a violent crime. And the word I got is that thing isn't going anywhere.
Of course, the Brian's Law is based on an officer that was killed.
Brian Derman.
This guy runs him over the vehicle, leaves the scene, winds up going to his house. Then when the police come in to arrest him, he stabs an officer.
Yep.
He resists arrest, and ultimately he's convicted of what?
Manslaughter in the second degree,
which is considered nonviolent
by the legislature.
By the legislature, and as a result, he's up for parole in how many years?
Well, 20%.
20% of what? What did he get?
He got a 20-year sentence.
Jury gave him a 20-year sentence.
Well, no, he got a 20-year sentence, but the manslaughter carried a 10-year sentence.
Okay.
So that would be he would be eligible in 2 years on the violent crime.
Runs over a police officer and kills him.
Runs over anybody and kills him, not just a police officer.
And then attacks the officer that comes in to arrest him. And this guy looks at 24 months before he is eligible to be released. And you know what that does to the family? You can't.
Do you know what it does to citizens? They just shake their head and think they can't do. What can I do? Well, first thing you can do is learn who your legislator is. The first thing, because when I talk to groups, that's one of the questions I ask. How many of you know who your legislator is? And about 10% raise their hands. And the idea is find out who that person is and make some noise. The old squeaky wheel concept works. And right now, the only wheels that are squeaking are the criminals and all of their advocates around and that are over lobbying the legislature. And there are no prosecutors in the legislature, I'm telling you. There are criminal defense lawyers in the legislature. If you do any kind of law that's criminal, it's going to be defense.
Tune into the following stations to hear the full episode.